Something is happening in southern China right now that should alarm every single person watching this video. And no, this is not your regular monsoon season flooding. What is unfolding in Guangdong province is a preview of what climate scientists have been warning about for years, and the numbers are staggering. Let me set the scene for you. Imagine waking up one morning, walking outside, and watching the river near your home rise past your ground floor, then your first floor, and keep going. That is not a hypothetical. That is exactly what happened to farmers and families in Qingyuan, a city of 4 million people in China's Pearl River Delta, just this past weekend. And here is what makes this different from any flood story you have heard before. Before 2022, residents say it rarely rained as hard as it does now. The floodwaters were never this high. Something has fundamentally shifted, and the people living through it can feel it in their bones, even if they cannot explain the science behind it. So today, we are going to break down exactly what is happening in Guangdong, why this flooding season started earlier than normal, what it tells us about extreme weather across the globe, and why the Pearl River Delta, one of the most economically critical regions on the entire planet, may be running out of time to prepare. Let's get into it. Guangdong province sits at the heart of China's economic engine. This is the region that Western media once called the factory floor of the world. Apple, Huawei, Samsung, Tesla. The supply chains feeding the biggest technology companies on Earth run directly through this province. When Guangdong floods, the entire global economy quietly holds its breath. And right now, Guangdong is flooding badly. Since late last week, the province has been hit by unusually heavy, sustained and widespread rainfall. Not the kind of rain you complain about during your commute. We are talking about rainfall levels 2 to 3 times higher than what is normally recorded at this time of year. Precipitation records for April have already been broken across multiple cities, including Shaoguan, Zhaoqing and Jiangmen. These are major urban centers, not small rural towns, and they are half submerged right now. In Qingyuan, a city that most people outside China have never heard of, the human cost is already visible. 61-year-old farmer Huang Jingrong was found sheltering under an overpass with other farmers from his village. Alongside him were a handful of personal belongings he managed to grab before the waters rose, including a washing machine he dragged out of his flooded home. His rice fields are gone, his potato fields are gone. He estimates his losses at around 100,000 yuan, which is roughly $13,800, and he said it with the quiet resignation of someone who knows nobody is coming to make it right. "I won't be making any money this year," he told reporters. "I will be making losses. What can we do? We won't get reimbursed." That sentence should stop you in your tracks. Here is a working farmer, a man who has spent his entire life growing food, sitting under a highway overpass, watching everything he built for the year wash away. And his conclusion is simply that nobody is going to help him. Across the province, 36 houses collapsed entirely. 48 more were severely damaged. The total direct economic loss as of Monday morning was reported at nearly 140.6 million yuan. 11 people remained missing. No fatalities have been confirmed yet, but with rivers still swollen above safety thresholds, that number could change. Rescuers in Qingyuan waded through neck-high waters, pulling residents out of buildings. One elderly woman was found trapped in waist-deep water inside her own apartment. Others had nowhere to go at all. They climbed to the upper floors of their homes and waited, getting food delivered to them by boat from neighbors, watching the brown water swirl below their windows with no idea when it would stop. Now here is where the story gets bigger than just one province. Much bigger. Chinese meteorologists say this extreme flooding event was triggered by an unusually strong subtropical high-pressure system sitting north of the equator. A stronger than normal subtropical high drove warmer surface temperatures, which in turn pulled massive amounts of moisture-laden air in from the South China Sea and even the Bay of Bengal. When that air mass hit land over Guangdong, it released its water load all at once, producing the kind of intense convective rainfall that used to be a rare event but is now becoming disturbingly routine. And scientists are not mincing words about why. Weather events in China have grown more intense and more unpredictable because of global warming. Record-breaking rainfall and devastating drought are now happening simultaneously across different parts of the same country. June 2022 was a preview of this. Guangdong was hit by the heaviest downpours in 6 decades that year. Hundreds of thousands of people were evacuated. That was supposed to be a once-in-a-generation event. It was 3 years ago. Now here we are in May 2026, and the flooding season has started earlier than normal, with rainfall more extreme than the region typically sees until the height of summer. The threshold for what counts as a catastrophic flood keeps getting redefined downward. The Pearl River Delta has flood defenses. China has invested heavily in water management infrastructure, but those defenses were designed for historical weather patterns, and historical weather patterns no longer apply. When rainfall is 2 to 3 times the seasonal norm, no levee system in the world was engineered with that margin in mind. On the supply chain side, the immediate news is that major companies are reporting no disruption. Camelot PCB, which makes circuit boards for Tesla and other electric vehicle manufacturers, confirmed operations are running normally. Polyrox Chemical, a plastic supplier to Apple, Huawei and Samsung, also said its production was unaffected. That is good news for now, but pay close attention to the phrase "for now." The rivers in Guangdong remain swollen above safety thresholds as of this week. The rainfall has not fully stopped. And the broader question nobody in the supply chain world wants to ask out loud is this: what happens when the next flood hits before the region has fully recovered from this one? What happens when the flooding season lasts 3 months instead of 6 weeks? What happens when the infrastructure that was built for one standard of extreme weather has to handle a new standard that nobody anticipated? Global companies that have spent decades concentrating manufacturing in this one region are now quietly running the numbers on what climate risk means for their operations. Reshoring, regional diversification, supply chain redundancy. These conversations are happening in boardrooms right now, and Guangdong's flooding is exactly the kind of event that accelerates them. Here is the bigger picture worth sitting with today. Southern China is not uniquely cursed. What is happening in Guangdong is part of a global pattern. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent, more intense, and more economically disruptive everywhere. The science on this is settled. What is not settled is how governments, businesses, and ordinary people like Huang Jingrong are supposed to absorb losses that come faster than they can recover from them. A 61-year-old farmer loses a full season of crops. He has no reimbursement coming. He starts over. But how many times can a person start over before starting over is no longer an option? That is the human math underneath all of the weather data, the supply chain reports, and the economic damage figures. And it is a math problem that does not have a clean answer. What we do know is that Guangdong will flood again. Maybe this year, maybe next year. But the trend line is clear. The flooding is getting worse, arriving earlier and lasting longer. The question for China, and for every country watching this unfold from a distance, is whether the pace of adaptation can match the pace of escalation. Right now, the answer does not look promising. If you found this breakdown valuable, do me a quick favor and subscribe to the channel. We cover the US economy and global financial stories that the mainstream media tends to gloss over or bury in talking points. Every week, we bring you real analysis with real data so you can understand what is actually happening to the world economy and what it means for your money. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you want to go deeper on climate risk and global supply chains, the next video is right there waiting for you.